I'm Katie Pavlich here with townhall.com, and I'm here with author Hymowitz. She is a fellow at the Manhattan Institute and the author of the new book, Manning Up, How the Rise of Women Has Turned Men into Boys. Thank you for coming by the offices today. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your new book.
So I got interested in the fact that my own 3 children, who were in their 20s and early 30s, were living a very different kind of experience than I did it during their age. So I got curious about that. I got curious about the fact that one of those differences was that women were moving ahead very, very nicely, and in fact, we now know that about 57% of the college graduates are female, so if anything, they were doing better than men. There's even some data out now suggesting that women are out earning men, at least single childless women are out earning men just out of college. And then I also had become curious about the media that was aimed specifically at the young men of this age group. Throughout the 90s and into the aughts, you saw an increase in the number of Adam Sandler movies and Judd Apatow movies. In the 90s, there was the introduction of Maxim magazine, also extremely popular with this demographic that I'm talking about. All of these media outlets projected a kind of what I call child man persona. And so I became curious about all of those things intermixing, and it seemed to me they had to be connected.
Now, it seems like young women these days have the complaint that men our age are just grown-up frat boys, so to speak. I mean, they kind of get out of college, you can't really let go of the beer pong on the weekends, hanging out at the frat house.
And the video games.
Video games, looking at girls as, objects to play with on the weekend rather than a serious relationship, and treating them as a person.
Right.
How do you think the feminist idea of creating men as enemies rather than as strong competitors has kind of influenced this idea of men not really, growing up and kind of treating women as just a play toy?
Well, I do think that there was a serious strain of anti-male feeling in feminism, and that some of that is coming to roost today. These guys who are now in their 20s and 30s grew up at a time where girls ruled, and boys were kind of told to stay in the background in so many words. And I think that 2 things happened. There were 2 possible responses to that. Some men became angry and rebellious, and kind of, I'm not going to put up with that, and so I'm just going to fight back and act as male as I possibly, male in the boyish sense as I possibly can. And on the other hand, you see some men who retreated, who became a little more passive, and kind of waited to see what was expected of them. I keep quoting this same blog post to people because I thought it was so perfectly illustrating this phenomenon, but it was on a dating website I looked at, and the woman wrote, the title of the post was, "Ask me out on a damn date." She said, "Don't just ask me to hang out."
I don't want to come over and watch a movie with you. So, in terms of expectations, like you just talked about, do you think that men are confused as to what what they should do to fulfill expectations? I mean, I talk to men who are in their 20s and they don't know if they should ask a girl out on a date, or if they shouldn't, if they should buy her a drink, if they shouldn't, how they should treat women, because women have portrayed this idea that don't open the door for me, I can do that myself. Don't buy me a drink, I can buy my own drink. And, where's the balance between being a strong individual woman and being able to kind of accept the gestures of men as really just they're trying to get to know you and not trying to?
Right. Listen, I think women are giving a lot of mixed messages on this, and have over the last decade or more. They want it both ways, and a lot of men are really annoyed about this and say, I think it is understandable. On the one hand, women say, I'm an equal, treat me with respect and absolute dignity and equality. And then when it comes to dating, they want to be asked out on a date. They often want to be paid for, although I understand that many women accept that they're going to be equals in that way too. But at some point, they want some kind of gesture. I actually did a piece which I talked about with Town Hall not so long ago about the proposal, the wedding proposal, and that in and of itself has become such a big deal. And it's always about the men making this gesture, making this grand statement that I think women are often longing for, even if they are avowed egalitarians. So the men, I think, feel caught between those two things. And I mean, I'll add another example, which I was just becoming aware of and speaking to a young friend of mine. I think women, on the one hand, they say, we have our careers are very, very important to us, and they are. But on the other hand, when it comes to marriage and childbearing, they're also holding out the possibility that maybe they'd cut back, maybe they'd go part-time, which I think is fine. But you have to understand, you are saying to guys, I'm your equal, and you need to take care of me. So,
right. Yeah, so the women aren't doing a very good job of, I guess, balancing out the attitude that they're portraying. Then.
I think so. I think there's got to be some real soul searching among women as well as men about what role they want men to be playing and how much they want to keep asserting this absolute parity. I distinguish sometimes between equality and parity, because it may just be that more women than men, and I should rephrase that, it is likely to be more women than men who will want to cut back when children are born, and that's fine, but let's admit it.
Right. So how do you think that the culture has played in to the expectation of women to have strong careers over having a family? How do you think that plays into the whole dating scene and the reason why young men are in a rush to get married, because women are portraying this image that they're never interested in having a family? Well,
I think that my generation of parents, and a little bit younger than me also, raised their sons and daughters to be not only just equals, but really to privilege women to a certain extent. I mentioned before the kind of girls' rule, take your daughters to work. That was all through the 90s. So the young men that we're talking about grew up during that period, learned that somehow the women were supposed to be the first sex. So they did, they did get that message. I think there was another factor, though, that we're maybe a little less conscious, all of us are a little less conscious of, but with the changes in the family, which is something that I've written about quite a bit over the years, I wonder whether there wasn't a message, a subliminal, subconscious message to men that, you're optional. It's nice if we have you around, and it's great to have a good father and all, but worst comes to worst, we'll do it alone.
You're just an accessory.
Yeah. So it was sort of an assistant woman. So I think that has had a really dramatic effect on men probably without their knowing it. If you look at history and anthropology and see how much male adulthood was defined by this obligation to care for, provide, and protect a family.